Venture deep into the far future where humanity's reach extends across the stars, guided by ambition, mystery, and the echoes of an ancient past. This is Alastair Reynolds' Poseidon's Wake. The novel Poseidon's Wake, written by Alastair Reynolds, is the third and final installment of his Poseidon's Children trilogy, the other two novels being Blue Remembered Earth and On the Steel Breeze. Poseidon's Wake is 598 pages long and was published in the year 2015, which means that the entire trilogy was published in a reasonably short amount of time from each other. As mentioned in the reviews of the other two novels of the series, Reynolds embarked on writing a more optimistic narrative for the future of humanity, contrasting his other novels, particularly his Revelation Space series, which often contained dystopic elements and themes of body and Lovecraftian horror. As such, Poseidon's Wake continues the overall tone of the trilogy, which should be reassuring for anyone who liked particularly this aspect in the other novels of the trilogy. It should be noted, though, that Poseidon's Wake can also act as a standalone novel, since the plotlines are not that tightly intertwined between the novels. This holds also true for Blue Remembered Earth and On the Steel Breeze, if we are being honest. Nonetheless, I would not recommend to start reading this book without having checked out the other two first. The story kicks off with Goma Akinya, daughter of Andege Akinya, who has spent most of her life on the planet Crucible working with the intelligent Tantor elephants, a species whose numbers have gradually declined over generations. Meanwhile, her mother, Andege, remains under house arrest due to her involvement in a catastrophic accident. Everything changes when an unexpected signal arrives from a distant, supposedly uninhabited star system carrying just two cryptic words: "Send Andege." The message sends shockwaves through the colony, and with the elderly Andege unable to go, Goma volunteers to take her place on a newly constructed starship, setting off on a journey into the unknown. At the same time, Kanu Akinya, serving as an ambassador on Mars, works to bridge the growing divide between humanity and the machine intelligences that evolved from his family's past experiments. But when a devastating event shakes the Martian colony, his life is upended, forcing him to question where his loyalties truly lie. As Goma and Kanu's stories unfold, their paths converge on a mystery that could redefine humanity's place in the universe. Even though the story takes place centuries beyond the events of the previous two novels, Reynolds maintains his commitment to plausible technological development and scientific rigor. There is certainly some extrapolation at play, but you will not find the kind of space magic common in softer science fiction. Instead, Poseidon's Wake stays grounded in realism, keeping its hard science fiction credentials intact despite its far future setting. Like the earlier books, the scope of the narrative is vast in theory, spanning great distances and ambitious ideas. However, at times the story can feel a bit constrained due to the sheer emptiness of space that separates the protagonists, something that is grounded in reality after all. The places we do visit, while conceptually interesting, could have been more densely populated with life and activity, though, making some sections feel a little sparse. Because of this, the novel does not quite reach the highest marks in world-building depth that one could imagine. In terms of original ideas, Reynolds once again leans on themes he has explored in his past works, as well as long-standing staples of science fiction. We see the uplift of animals, transhumanism, the emergence of machine intelligence, and the inevitable conflicts that arise between AI and biological life. And, of course, there is the presence of enigmatic alien forces subtly guiding and influencing the course of humanity. When it comes to characters, Poseidon's Wake follows a familiar structure, unfolding through the perspectives of a handful of protagonists, again descendants of the Akinya family, and also some side characters. The cast size sits comfortably in the middle, not sprawling but not overly limited either. This is very much in line with Reynolds' usual approach, so no surprises there. In terms of critical reception, Poseidon's Wake was only nominated for the Teti Valteia Award in 2017, not quite matching the recognition received by its predecessors. This is also somewhat reflected in its combined rating, sitting at a 3.9 out of 5 stars across thousands of reviews on platforms like Goodreads, LibraryThing and Amazon. While still well received, it seems to have resonated less with readers compared to the first 2 books in the trilogy. One possible reason for the novel's somewhat lukewarm reception is its open-ended conclusion, which may have left some readers feeling unsatisfied. That said, this kind of ending is, or rather was, a hallmark of Reynolds' writing style. A good example is once more the Revelation Space series, where the somewhat inconclusive finale was only strengthened years later with the addition of Inhibitor Phase. In that sense, Poseidon's Wake and the trilogy as a whole follow a similar pattern. Another factor could be the characters who, at least for me, felt somewhat unremarkable. They were not bad, but they also did not leave a lasting impression. By contrast, the Chico triplets from On the Steel Breeze had their triplication as a defining trait, even if that concept brought its own set of challenges, something I discussed in my previous review, and you could also interpret the triplication as somewhat gimmicky. And finally, at least in my personal opinion, Poseidon's Wake is just the weakest installment of the trilogy. I even found myself struggling to recall some of the plot points in detail, which is never a great sign. Blue Remembered Earth left the strongest impression on me, followed by On the Steel Breeze. With Poseidon's Wake, the only thing that really stuck with me was its open-ended conclusion, and unfortunately that is not the novel's strongest feature. And that brings me to my final thoughts on Poseidon's Children as a whole. As I have echoed throughout my reviews of the trilogy, these books never really left a lasting mark on me. On paper they should have been compelling, but for some reason they just lacked that special something for me. One major issue for me was the lack of standout characters. There is no Ilya Volyova, no Clevain, no Sky Houseman, no Sparva. None of these truly memorable figures from Reynolds' other works. While Poseidon's Children blends familiar sci-fi concepts in a well-executed way, the stories themselves often felt like they were missing something. Maybe it is that they were too nice, too conflict-averse for my taste. Overall, I would consider Poseidon's Children to be Reynolds' weakest series, and that is coming from someone who has read most of Reynolds' work, from his earliest novels to his more recent releases. The novels in the trilogy lacked the tension, the conflict, and the sheer madness of books like Absolution Gap or Terminal World. They also did not have the kind of wild, absurdly unique ideas that make Reynolds' best work so memorable. Or maybe they were just too long. Some of Reynolds' novellas introduce 1 or 2 great concepts, but wisely avoid stretching them into full-length books, like he did with Eversion, which was a reasonably short novel with a great idea. That said, I do not want to come across as overly negative. If you have read the first 2 books in the trilogy, you probably know exactly what to expect from Poseidon's Wake. If you enjoyed them, you will likely enjoy this one as well. Just keep my thoughts in mind as you go in. If you liked this video, you may also enjoy the other reviews and content on my channel. Feel free to leave a comment if you want to discuss the novels or if you want to suggest other books that I should review in the future. Please consider upvoting and subscribing, it is much appreciated. Thank you for watching and until next time.